Hi, this is Cal Harrison with Information Security Media Group. Today we're going to do a deep dive into active detection and response and eliminating breach risk. I'm pleased to introduce an expert in this field, Will Gadzinski, Director of Digital Forensics and Incident Response at Pondurance. Will, welcome.
Thank you very much, Cal. Nice to meet you.
So, just before we get started, I just wanted to talk about your background in incident response and how you've been applying that experience to threat detection and response through the years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually fell into cybersecurity in kind of a strange way. I got my formal degree was in intelligence analysis, and then my first job out of college was working at an IT firm. Later on, I went and ended up working for NASA over at Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia. While I was working there, I found that I gained really useful insight into how an organization such as NASA is able to operate in a high risk environment while still maintaining a pretty high standard of security. Many of the concepts that they follow the principles of a high reliability organization, which is an organization that follows a certain set of standards and principles in order to operate in really what is a high risk space. And so working in that capacity really gave me the opportunity to see what it looks like to design an information security program that doesn't just assume everything is secure and instead challenges its own assumptions. And it really kind of took the underlying ethos of that high reliability organization and the safety culture that NASA has built over the years. And then kind of applying that to cybersecurity really has helped me figure out new or interesting ways to look at the issues that we're facing every single day and to deal with how, well, just really the reality of ransomware and overall cybercrime in today's day-to-day world.
Yeah, it's a really good point. NASA is an agency where lives are on the line, so every aspect of technology is super serious.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
So, and we've just over the past few months, we've written quite a bit about scattered spider and, some really breathtaking breaches that they've committed or, claimed responsibility for. Um, if you could talk to us, how does about scattered spider, how does it represent a new evolution in threats? And how should we be learning about it?
Yeah. I mean, so Scattered Spider has really been in the news because they are the ones that are taking down the big names, right? Your MGMs, those kind of larger incidents that tend to make the news are usually Scattered Spider, or Scattered Spider is, I guess, the group of the day. Really, they have become so successful because they have responded to industry trends. Scattered Spider as an organization is not, ultra sophisticated, although they are skilled and technically savvy. What they really are is just smart about how an IT organization operates today, and just finding the pain points and finding the pressure points. One of their main tactics and techniques and procedures is to target central identity providers. So you think Okta, you think JumpCloud, Entra ID, anything that some organization might rely on as its kind of central canonical authorization AAA provider. That is kind of what they're targeting because they know that many industries these days are moving to a central IDP because they know that centralized logging, centralized access control, multi-factor authentication, all of those are huge value adds that you get from doing that. But from a threat actor perspective, it makes it such a valuable target when they get into one of those IDPs and they can move laterally into any number of services that an organization might subscribe to today. And really, as the industry has shifted to adopt these central IDPs and integrate multiple different SaaS applications that each organization is often subscribing to these days, the general best practices have been to basically do this. And Scattered Spider is doing nothing more than just responding to the industry trends, targeting that which is valuable, and then moving out in a, let's say creative and clever way, but it's altogether not entirely novel, right? What I would say Scattered Spider more so represents, rather than themselves as an entity, is really what we should expect there to be at least one of at any point in time. And when I say like one of at any point in time, I mean you have to anticipate that threat actors in the world will respond to the trends that the industry is following and jump ahead, right? It's the game of measures and countermeasures. There's always going to be some organization out there that is targeting that which the industry is prioritizing it.
Yeah, really good point. So, how have our defenses become more proactive as a result of these types of attacks?
Realistically, cyber defenses are becoming more proactive because threat actors are becoming more capable. The barrier to entry in engaging in cybercrime is lower than it ever has been. And with the involvement and growth of artificial intelligence and large language models, you can get a high level of sophistication from an otherwise unsophisticated actor. That being said, the frequency, the probability of those incidents is just going to go up as that barrier to entry goes down, right? Doing the risk equation math, you would say, well, how instead are we going to reduce the overall impact? And that's how proactive detection and response has evolved over time. It's that no longer can you just assume that your border controls are able to prevent an incident. You effectively have to live in a world where you're assuming that an incident is going on all the time. And you're not only looking at your border, but you're looking inside your house for any sort of indication that there's some malicious activity going on. And when I mentioned, the risk equation, right? Probability times impact equals risk. It really is that impact thing that people tend to turn a blind eye to. If a threat actor gets in, I promise that's not the end of the game. You can stop them. You can minimize or otherwise kind of localize the impact to one specific area through a combination of careful planning and active detection and mitigation.
So, where does security organizations need to evolve still?
So, I mean, a security organization or an organization's security posture really needs to evolve to a point where you are challenging your own assumptions as an organization. Um, the industry has really popularized a term called zero trust architecture, right? This dynamic where you no longer are just taking things at face value. The internet as an untrusted entity has now become your LAN is an untrusted entity, and you need to enforce a minimum security requirement for anything to operate in there. I think with that in mind, early IT models kind of looked like somebody building a canoe, right? Later on, you saw people building boats that could float down a river or float and otherwise hold water. Well, nowadays it's not just a boat that you're building, it's a submarine. You are beset on all sides by threats. You have individuals, you have automated threats. They can target your identity provider, they can target your appliance, your border appliances, they can target your network, they can target email. It's really just there's a litany of different ways that a threat actor can actually target your organization. And so that's kind of why I like to use the submarine term, right? There isn't really a direction that you can look that there isn't something that's threatening out there on the horizon. And so realistically, people need to recognize that you need to apply that level of healthy cynicism and healthy paranoia as a security practitioner and acknowledge that things will get through and incidents will occur and be prepared to not only detect them but contain them and eradicate any sort of you know threat actor activity when you do.
The submarine is a great metaphor. It occurred to me we've come a long way since the castle and the moat, haven't
Yeah, exactly,
we?
exactly.
So, how do we get to a legitimate state where we're able to balance breach risk with active detection and response?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a boring answer, but it's a numbers game, right? It's all about the dollar value. Performing a business impact analysis can oftentimes be a very nebulous engagement or a nebulous exercise where you're not really sure what you're doing, and the number that you get at the end might be difficult to even justify. But the reality is that, your typical security class is going to teach you you can't buy $100 lock for a $50 bike, or at least you shouldn't, right? And so the idea is that once you get to a certain point where you're following the industry's best practices from your network border, and in terms of prevention, that's when you need to recognize, all right, am I going to get some, is our return on investment going to continue, or are we going to get diminishing returns from this? It's a combination of not only the prevention, but also identifying and understanding that you can't rely on a single solution for your security. That is really going to be how somebody gets to that point and where they need to focus their detection and response. Multi-layered approach and a multifaceted approach in terms of the vendors and the overall supply chain that you're using and targeting, to identify those incidents and risks.
Really good point. So, could you share with me how Pondurance is helping customers, reach this more secure end state?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one of the good things that I will say about Pondurance is that we really don't have any sort of customer that isn't able to reach out to our company and reach out to the incident response team and ask and see, hey, I believe an incident might be going on in my network. Can you take a look? Um, with our incident response team and with our SOC, we not only have the opportunity to detect whether an incident occurred, but we have automated capabilities for very, very rapid containment and remediation based on the information that we find. Additionally, we have decades of incident response experience that we can draw on to not only understand whether or not an incident is occurring, but to know exactly what the correct next steps might be, in order to minimize that impact. Because our team works hundreds of incidents constantly, we do have that background to where we have a numbers-based approach and we do have metrics and data that we can lean on in order to mitigate those risks a little bit more effectively. We also have a MDR stack and a monitoring detection and response stack that is platform agnostic. It doesn't entirely rely on any one vendor, which means we can layer in multiple vendors and effectively mitigate that risk of a compromised supply chain or an otherwise blind spot within one particular solution. So the combination of the automated detection and response, the 24 by 7 monitoring, and the overall layered, multifaceted approach to detection and monitoring, I think is really the key there.
We've covered quite a bit of ground here. If our viewers would like to learn more about Pondurance and active detection and response, what do you recommend?
I'd recommend you go to pondurance.com and read our blog. We're able to provide not only timely information blasts about active threats, but also more long-term conversations and blogs about our recommendations as an industry practitioner.
Great. We'll include a link to your blog on the page as well to make it easier for folks.
All
So
right.
we've been discussing active detection and response with Will Gazinski at Pondurance. For Information Security Media Group, I'm Cal Harrison. Thank you for your time and attention.